Hi everyone, I hope that you are staying safe and healthy during this time. My name is Emily Russell, and today I will be proposing an intervention plan designed to bridge the gap in breastfeeding success in Indigenous communities through the nonprofit Leche League. Leche League Canada is the largest breastfeeding advocacy group in Canada, supporting nearly 15,000 new mothers and families across nearly 200 communities in the nation each year. It is well documented that exclusive breastfeeding is associated with a wide range of positive health outcomes, and an argument can be made that it is the single greatest early lifestyle factor in morbidity and mortality in Canada. While the extent of these benefits is still being investigated, evidence suggests that exclusive breastfeeding confers lifelong protective health benefits for both mother and child across a variety of health conditions, including immunological functioning, cognitive development, cancer risk, and obesity. In Canada, however, breastfeeding initiation and duration trends remain suboptimal and exhibit significant geographical, economical, and demographic disparities. Early cessation of breastfeeding is largely attributable to latching difficulties, pain, social barriers, and perceived convenience. The majority of these concerns are rooted in cultural misconceptions and lack of modeled breastfeeding success. Leche League Canada aims to combat these misconceptions and barriers by facilitating one-on-one peer support and perinatal education. In Canada, the greatest breastfeeding-related health disparities can be observed in at-risk Aboriginal communities, where failure to breastfeed is much more common and contributes, at least in part, to a higher incidence of early childhood caries, ear infections, gastroenteritis, and sudden infant death syndrome. Since breastfeeding attitudes and trends exhibit cross-generational inheritance, that is, grandmothers and other female family members who breastfed are likely to instill these values in their kin and provide support in the breastfeeding journey. The breastfeeding trends in Indigenous communities must be looked at through the lens of Canada's history of cultural erosion, and any targeted interventions must recognize Indigenous voices and honor the social mores of the people. Despite serving over 200 regions across the country, most support groups through Leche League Canada are confined to major municipalities, and no support group is currently available within an Indigenous reserve. Since Leche League leaders are recruited from and serve the communities in which they live, the advocacy group is uniquely poised to provide the infrastructure and networking systems necessary for Aboriginal mothers to reclaim their culture of breastfeeding, which, until recently, involved exclusive breastfeeding and continued breastfeeding for 3 years and beyond. One such example of a successful breastfeeding intervention plan within an Indigenous community is that of the Kanasatake Health Center in the Mohawk community of Oka, which adopts an intergenerational perinatal education approach to breastfeeding advocacy and is one of few centers in Canada to receive the World Health Organization Baby Friendly Initiative status. Between 2011 and 2016, the breastfeeding supports made available through the Kanasatake Health Center has helped raise the number of mothers breastfeeding for at least 12 months from 36% to 51%, which is well above the national average. While Kanasatake Health Center is a comprehensive healthcare facility which provides unique opportunities to influence breastfeeding initiation in hospital, there are several aspects of the program that the Leche League can adopt to better serve Indigenous communities in Canada. Most notably, Kanasatake Health Center hosts intergenerational breastfeeding support gatherings hosted by healthcare professionals and available to new families, grandparents, extended family, and children alike. By simultaneously educating multiple generations about common breastfeeding hurdles and misconceptions, these gatherings stand to shift public perspective within the community and to foster an environment more conducive to breastfeeding. Keeping in line with these principles, and by using existing Leche League infrastructure of peer-to-peer support groups and educational seminars, extending the educational programs to include multiple generations and recruiting and training volunteers from Indigenous populations could prove to be a non-invasive and respectful way to restore breastfeeding attitudes and practices in these communities. While this intervention is not hampered by significant financial requirements, it does require a shift in the conceptual framework of Leche League's existing peer-to-peer support groups from a mother-centered to an intergenerational approach. Moreover, it requires an intuitive outreach program co-generated between the Leche League and the Indigenous community of interest. To ensure that such a targeted intervention is not unwelcomed, the Leche League Canada should work on a community-by-community basis with emphasis placed on permission, consultation, and continued involvement from the local elders. In that same vein, partnerships with Indigenous healers and elders will be the fulcrum of this program, providing both the skill and the knowledge of Indigenous cultural worldviews necessary for the intergenerational breastfeeding education and support intervention to succeed.